as you put it, is not regarded as a fatal issue. You fail, you learn, and you try again until you succeed. That's the way we have to look at all our terms of.
Dr. Nkosana, you raise a very critical issue of saying patients go to the hospital. But here is an issue where you have got political parties with structures all over the country failing to dislodge SANU-PF. Why do you think that as an independent candidate you will make it?
By the way, I'm not an independent candidate. Let's again correct
yes,
that.
Yes.
I started off wanting to run as an independent candidate.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And my initial soundings of the population sentiment led me very quickly to realize that the concept of independent did not sit down very well with people. That's why we then formed APA, the Alliance for People's Agenda.
Let me hold you there. Sorry to cut you. Sorry to cut you.
Sorry to cut you.
The reason why I'm saying you are a quasi-independent is because APA has no structures. We have heard in the media that they have deserted you, and currently you are going it alone. Are you not a quasi-independent?
No, not at all. Firstly, APA has got structures. And yes, some people have left in the executive in Bulawayo, but you know that people have gone and left other parties as well, so there's nothing particularly significant about that. But we've got structures in APA. At the moment, we're actually looking now for candidates, both at council and MP level. We've got structures right through the country. What is confusing people is that APA's campaign strategy is totally different from what everybody else is doing.
Right.
Yeah. I've literally been doing walkabouts. I've just done Bulawayo, and now I'm in Vic Falls, and in everything in between. Normally, people would expect that when I turn up in Wange, Bulawayo, Vic Falls, there would be a rally, and we're not doing rallies. We're going, having conversations with people on one-to-one basis, and those engagements are proving to be incredibly valuable because of the real engagement and dialogue that takes place between us and the population, so that we get to listen to them rather than us just talking to them. People want to hear what their issues are. And the leadership style in Zimbabwe to date is that leaders talk to people as opposed to listening to what the issues that people would like to be addressed are. And that's what we're doing.
Interesting. So Dr. Nkosana, Moyo saying that his campaign strategy is different. Do you think it works?
Well, if I didn't think it worked, I wouldn't be doing it. Is it different? Absolutely. Is it taking time for people to understand it? Absolutely. But when we engage every time, so let me tell you what some of the things that come up.
Right.
One of them, which without fail always comes up, is people will ask for t-shirts. Some people, especially lots of young men, will ask for beer. And we tell them, then it provides us with an opportunity to engage with them, to ask them where they think the money that they're being given, which is buying these t-shirts and trinkets by candidates, where it's coming from, and what commitments that is making on what impact is going to have when these people get into government. And then we make them realize that the seeds of corruption come from this interaction where in fact the vote becomes a transaction. In other words, I buy you beer, you vote for me. That is corruption, actually. That's where corruption starts. In other words, I am buying you to do me a favor. It's a favor. It's not you as a citizen deciding what kind of leader you need anymore. It's who is going to buy me a beer and I'll vote for them. So are you then surprised that when these people get into government, that's the kind of interaction with citizens they only understand? And when we have these conversations, people suddenly stop and say, wow, we just had never thought about it that way. Now we understand. This does not happen at a rally.
It does not happen at a rally, but quick question, Dr. Nkosana Moyo. Do you think you're going to be the next president of the Republic of Zimbabwe?
Without doubt.
Carl?
I want to speak more to policy right now. And I've heard some very flowery policies, particularly liquidity is a big one at the top of the list. I've heard some glowing policies about changing the liquidity crisis in 4 days. We've heard some magical things being talked about. What are your magical issues, just quick bullet points on how to solve the liquidity crisis?
Well, you use an interesting word, magical. I don't operate in that space, unfortunately. So I'm going to start with down-to-earth issues. And I think when you go around and talk to people, and you ask them, what are the issues that are not working for you? They don't talk about bullet trains. They will tell you, my children, you've got no jobs. I send them to school, they're educated, they passed, the certificates are hanging on the wall, but they're selling airtime. I would like my children to get jobs. And then I say to them, tell me, what do you think actually led us to be where we are? And in that conversation, what becomes very clear, very quickly, is that there is an appreciation that there are two main things that have killed our country. And it's not FDI, by the way, in other words, foreign direct investment, because that is a response to a cause, an initial cause. Here are the two key issues. Corruption is one of them. Because our resources have been taken from us, the public, and personalized and spirited somewhere outside the country. Big issue. We don't have resources, yet we have them, and we are a rich country. The second one is that when you look at our institutions, especially in the public sector, they are all suboptimal in terms of performance. Why? Because they're being managed by the wrong people. And where does that come from? Nepotism, cronyism, and patronage. So I explain to people ukuthi abantu abangena elibakhethayo wathatha abantwana babo bebafaka emsebenzini even bengayazi imisebenzi yakhona. That's why you see, look at the disaster at Zimbabwe. Look at what's happening with places like the railways. We've had now to go to South Africa to try and get our railways to work again. Look at ZESA. What is all this about? Look at our road system. Everything collapses because we take people who are not qualified, because they are related to us, or because they are our cronies, or because we are doing them favors, not because they know what they're doing. So before we get onto bullet trains, we need to address all those fundamentals. That's where we ought to be starting from. Get rid of corruption. Go to meritocracy. Get Zimbabweans who know what they're doing to perform these functions, and then you restore trust. And let me come to the FDI as a reaction issue. Any financial transaction is going to be dependent on trust. The international community does not trust this country in terms of the people running this country. So people are not going to put their money into our country. The same way with liquidity. People now are keeping money under mattresses because they don't trust that if they put the money in the bank, they'll get it back. Yeah? So we have to address very basic fundamental things before we worry about bullet trains and the like. That's my view.
All right, so you raise a critical issue of us not focusing on bullet trains. So all talk is about Nelson Chamisa, a bit of
I talked about bullet trains, not Nelson.
No. Of course, we know that bullet trains are being spoken about by Nelson Chamisa. I think it's in the public domain. It's in the public domain. Dr. Nkosana Moyo, a bullet train, Chamisa, it's there like CMS twins, right? Inseparable. All talk is on Chamisa and Nangagwa and little about you. Why do you think so?
Oh, I think that's understandable because traditionally, in terms of if you look back, the two biggest parties have been ZANU and the MDC. So there is nothing surprising in that. I think Zimbabweans are adjusting to new players coming into the scene, and we just have to accept that as a reality. It does not mean, however, that the future is going to be like the past, and I think people at the moment are probably, those like you who are commentators and watching, are thinking that the future will reflect the past. It will reflect, it will depend on, but it will not be a replication of. The future will be very different.
Interesting. Carl?
Yes, so I want to speak more to collaboration.
Yes.
Now, we are seeing in the political space that there's a lot of, it's almost as if every political candidate has a separate agenda. That is, there's no unification of ideas. Is there any collaboration? And I'm speaking because we currently have the president in Victoria Falls at the moment. Are there areas of collaboration where you'd like to say, here's one idea I'd like to give you, you know, this is an opportunity, perhaps maybe, I know the president listens to Prison. I think he tunes in his radio in his Zimwan, I've heard. What would you like to say to him right now as an idea to say, President, this is, why don't you do this?
Well, I've just told. So if you go back to when he went to Davos, I am recorded as having said, I would not have gone to Davos. I would have gone to Davos next year, precisely because of what I just said previously. In terms of prioritization, what we need to acknowledge is that Zimbabwe was not destroyed by outsiders. Zimbabwe was destroyed by us, Zimbabweans. So if you want to rebuild that foundation, this is where you start. You don't go and start outside. You engage with the Zimbabweans and root out the causes for why Zimbabwe was destroyed. The external one was a reaction. So we managed our foreign policy very badly. We were not realistic about the power relationships and what more powerful nations can do to you. But it was a reaction. So if we want to fix this country going forward, we have to build the foundation. So my suggestion or idea to the president would be, Mr. President, please, just focus on rebuilding the foundation. Root out corruption genuinely. Don't use it as a surrogate for fighting your enemies. Root it out honestly. Yeah? And secondly, don't turn Zimbabwe into a nation which is tribal in terms of the people who get jobs are people who are known to you, people who are within your extended family relationships. No. Zimbabwe's got very good talent. As you know, the topmost resource of any country is human resources. And the Zimbabweans excel wherever they've gone. We are overrepresented globally in institutions. We are a major component in sustaining the South African economy. Like Nelson says, I have to agree with him on this one, different wording though, we are not holding up the health system in the UK, but Zimbabweans play a very important role, both doctors and nurses. It's a fact. So if we started focusing on turning our country into a meritocratic system, people who are capable are given jobs, not people who are known to powerful people. If you could do those two things, root out corruption genuinely, prioritize properly in terms of use of our resources. At the moment, we see things which are unbelievable. Buying vehicles for chiefs, when hospitals have got no medicine, when school kids are walking to school without access to transport, and then getting to school after walking up to sometimes 12, 15 kilometers, and you're expecting them to be attentive and learn anything, I think that's criminal, to be honest with you. And we're talking about building a new parliament for about $70 million. For what? That's not a priority. So I would say those three things. Please, Mr. President, re-look at your priorities. Look at the issue of corruption and look at the issue of meritocracy. We'll lay the proper foundations for our country taking off from here.
All right. I'm taking a totally different detour. I'm asking political questions, deviating from the intellectual and policy stuff that Carl will deal with. You are raising a critical issue about that people should not be given jobs on tribal lines. That brings me to my next question. Do you feel that Zimbabweans vote on tribal lines? We have got Dr. Joshua Nkomo, he has been there, he failed. You have Watchman Ncube has been there, he failed. You had Dumiso Tabengwa, he failed. And right now there is a barrage of attack on yourself and Dr. Nkosana Kupe. Do you think that Zimbabweans vote based on tribal and ethnic lines?
So in order to answer that comprehensively, let's go back to ZAPU. When ZAPU was formed, it was a countrywide party. It was not a Ndebele party. It was not a Matabeleland party. It had people, as you know, Joseph Msika died as it was ZANU-PF then, but he is not Ndebele, and he was in ZAPU. So I think if you look at the politicization of our people and evolution of Zimbabwean politics, you have to acknowledge that Zimbabweans fundamentally are capable of non-tribal politics. At the moment, we are operating in that space because the politicians have made us like that. So leadership is important in re-socializing us away and making us reunite as a nation and be non-tribal. It's important, though, not to read that to imply that we should bury and hide diversity. I ought to be to allow you and respect you to be who you are, but at the top, I need to be able to create a value proposition which says, I can be Ndebele, I can be Ndau, I can be Kalang, I can be, but I'm Zimbabwean, and I'm proud to be Zimbabwean. So it is that balance, delicate balance of allow diversity, take pride in it, use it actually to enrich what we do, but create a value proposition where every Zimbabwean is proud to belong. But politicians have made us that. It's not our natural inclination to be like that. When you look at intermarriages in this country, you find people marrying across tribe. It's not an issue until politicians come around. They then make us much more aware that you are this and this and the other. It's politicians who've corrupted the system.
It's politicians who have corrupted the system, and what are you doing as Dr. Nkosana Moyo to sort out and rectify that error?
So I am engaging all the time with people. Firstly, just my identity happens to be, I didn't contrive it to be that way, but it is helpful. Let's just put that on the, you started off by implying that I'm Ndebele, but which I'm not. I'm from the Midlands, I'm Karanga. My mother, however, is Umankomo, yeah, from Philabuz Airhawk. So, but my wife, as an example, is Mutasa from Manicaland. So if you wanted to see somebody who cannot be, by definition, by my very being, I cannot be tribal. It would be meaningless. So the name which you've read from to imply my identity is misled you. So this is a conversation which we ought to have, but ultimately, this issue is not going to be solved by a conversation, I'm sorry to say. It's going to be solved by actual behavior of leadership. What does that comprise? In the construction of an administration, every Zimbabwean has to be able to see themselves in that administration and say, I am represented, this is my government. That does not have to be done without paying attention to the things I talked about. You have to make sure that there is no nepotism, there is no cronyism, there is no patronage, there is meritocracy.
All right.
Because if you turn around and say to me, almost like that implies you can't do it, then you're also implying something else, that there are some tribal groups where there are no smart people. That's not, is not true.
All right. Interesting. So you are tuned into Priz FM 91.2 FM, broadcasting live and direct from number 220 Kingsway, right here in Victoria Falls. I'm asking from a layman's point of view for the benefit of someone in Chinotimba, Nkosana, and Chambezi. And Carl is my intellectual. Shoot.
I just want to, I like that you mentioned the issue about social sort of reconditioning. And I think we need to take this opportunity. We have a big issue in the country where the public is fractured right now. They're in a state where they're almost at war with each other because of this whole presidential race. People not knowing how to speak to each other. What can you do to speak to the electorate to say, how do you handle politics? How do you handle your politicians, and how must you handle each other as citizens? Because right now, we have a much deeper crisis than the elections. Is the electorate itself is not in a position to understand the role of politics and their role as an electorate, especially when it comes to building this nation.
So let me start somewhere slightly different, Carl. And this is where I know I will probably be crucified for acknowledging something positive that has come out of the CNC, okay? It's fascinating, actually. The population is fractured, you're right. But I am finding as we go around that there is still nevertheless a preparedness to engage, a very healthy preparedness to engage. People do ask ultimately, which is very unfortunate, almost without exception I get asked, where do you come from? Almost without exception. So it's something we have to deal with, but I think there is a certain level of maturity which is coming into our society amazingly quickly, actually, after November, that people are engaging. Let me give you another example, which surprised me today. Wherever we go, we make a point of reporting at a police station first in the neighborhood, where we're going to be going door to door, doing our walkabouts. We always go to a police station. Now, in the previous administration, given that the president is here at Vic Falls, the police would have been scared to give us permission to do a walkabout. They wouldn't have allowed it. We went in today, we explained what we do, they took all the details, and they said, go do your business. I mean, that is a surprise. So I think although you are right to observe the fracture, I think that can be mended amazingly quickly, provided the leadership signals it, behaves it in a manner that reinforces the message, and that is not just words and no substance. And we, as we go around, are seeing Zimbabweans' capacity to rise up to that challenge quite quickly.
All right.
What is left, though, is that the leadership that is going to take this country forward has to then take it into these other elements I was talking about. Issues of corruption, issues of meritocracy, issues of representation based on a meritocracy. In fact, something that keeps coming up in Matabeleland is the following. People will say to you, when I drive on the road, at every single roadblock, the police talk to me in Shona. in Matebele. They say, when I go to hospital, when Ugogo goes to hospital, more often than not, they claim, I don't have first-hand experience of this, that the people who attend to me talk to me in Shona. They will claim that even in schools, kindergarten and that sort of early stage learning, the people who are teaching speak Shona, not the local languages. I think these things, if they are true, are not correct. They need to be rectified.
Alrighty, so I've got a question from Hamilton, and he's asking, Uti, what is your take on the issue of the printing of the ballot papers?
Well, there are a lot of claims. Like I say again, I don't have any evidence, but what I can say, however, is that when you've got nothing to hide, it should not be a problem to concede that there should be total transparency in terms of who prints the ballot papers, who controls that whole process. If the parties are claiming, especially the people in control, President Mnangagwa is claiming that we're going to have free and fair elections, why is the printing of ballot papers such as a secretive issue? That's for me is when you try to, if you claim you're being transparent, there is nothing to hide, you ought to concede to this issue. All parties ought to satisfy themselves who is going to print them. Then the question doesn't arise. When you resist, you plant a seed in the people's minds that you're up to something. So why not just open it up and say, this is where the ballot papers are going to be printed. All of us are involved in making sure that the process that's going to be followed, the controls that are going to be put in place, will not put anybody at risk in terms of what's going to happen. That's the best way to go.
Breeze FM 91.2 FM, broadcasting live and direct from number 220 Kingsway, right here in Victoria Falls. Ngabulebukani kuna ngapo Echinotimba Nkosana Jambezi Matetsi. Good morning. We have got actually our second presidential aspirant. We had Mama Uthokozani Makupe a few months ago, and then of course we have got Dr. Nkosana Moyo in the studio talking about his campaign strategy, talking about his policies, and yeah, you can send your messages through to 0732 016 Carl.
Yes, and also you forgot to say that we started with Obey first before we moved on. We started with Utogo Bay and then President Bay here in the studio. It might be a bias, but we are looking more at cosmetics as well as policy, so that's our strategy today. I just wanted to ask a question, especially for social media audiences. Now, you receive quite a varied response from people. As a politician, how do you deal with a lot of the negative criticism that comes with your campaign? How do you internalize this?
You see, I think if we are claiming that we want to create a democracy that is mature, we need to have the capacity, firstly, to acknowledge that or accept that people have got a right to express their views. Whether you like it or not is a different issue. Whether you agree with it or not is another issue. So the maturity to be able to accommodate different perspectives, I think, is imperative. It is part of the DNA of a democracy. Yeah. So my view is I look at these things, I think about them, because I can't take the view that everything I think and do is right. I have to actually analyze what people are saying to me, what they're feeding back, and see where we can adjust if we feel it's founded or not. But clearly, the same way that I can be wrong, so can they be. It doesn't mean that everything they say is right and we must follow. But it simply means we have to be sufficiently open-minded to listen without taking offense and act as we see fit.
So speaking to the comedy audience, this is the comedy vote that we're now speaking about. As a president coming in, are you going to be the kind of president that allows comedy to happen, satire, and all of these things? Because in the past, comedians such as myself has been forced into exile, some have been arrested. What kind of president are you going to be with regards to that?
So let me take comedy as part of the art, sort of creatives. I think the value in the creative arts is that it gives you a different way of looking at yourself and at society. And a lot of true things are often said and dealt with because they are dealt with in a light comedy way. So it's really necessary to create space for the arts, including comedy, and not try to suppress it, and be open to listening carefully to what messages are being sent through that channel of communication. So for me, it's healthy to have, and the arts generally are a different way of portraying what is going on within a society. And you have to be open to it and listen and see what messages are being sent to you and what you can do about it.
All right, so let's get to our WhatsApp platform. I've got a message coming through from Clara. She says, is he fighting Chamisa or ZANU? Give us your plan to rescue Zimbabweans by bullet trains. By bullet train, it means fresh and fast thinking. That's literature. Makaura Nyika Muna, former president, Maita Mari Makubuda Munyika. So I beg everyone who wants to be president should be audited first. Right. She goes on to say people talk of security because their hands are dirty somewhere. This guy wanted money, not only people at heart. They want to dissolve these elections like what Simba did in 2018. I think basically this person is talking about the vote splitting.
In 2008,
Yeah.
I suppose it means.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, firstly, I'm not fighting anybody. I'm presenting an alternative. That is not a fight. In fact, that question, I think, in many ways, touches on what Carl was asking about tolerance for different views and perspectives of how to look at life. So it's not a fight for me. I consider, and I've answered this question many, many times, that Zimbabweans are intelligent people. Giving them one more option does not mean they're going to get confused. Not at all. They will listen, they will assess, and they'll choose. And we have to respect that choice. So I'm not fighting President Mnangagwa, and I'm not fighting President of MDC, Nelson Chamisa, not at all. But I am providing to my fellow citizens an option of a candidate who would run this country totally differently, I believe, to what the others would do. So it's as simple as that. So the splitting of the vote is included in that answer. Zimbabweans can choose. Options are good. Democracy implies that. We can't say we believe in democracy and then start trying to put constraints on what people can choose and not choose. That's a contradiction.
Do we look forward to some optimistic look that you might approach the president in town for a round of golf, or maybe to hand each other flyers, to compare notes? Does this even happen behind the scenes with political candidates?
Well, I don't think our country has gotten to that level yet, but having said that, from what is in the public domain, we saw when President Mnangagwa was inaugurated, I saw Joyce Mujuru, I saw Morgan Tsvangirai there. So I think the platform is there for that kind of maturity to develop. So I'm not going to go out of my way to do that because, as you know, the security considerations, you never know. So I'm going to stay out of his way and do my own business.
Do you feel maybe because you're not using the same strategy in terms of politics that you are missing out on being in people's wardrobes at the moment? I'm sure with 100 political candidates actually sending out their T-shirts and their caps, that Zimbabweans are going to have the best wardrobe ever. What sort of take-home do you think you're going to give the Zimbabwean people besides the paraphernalia?
Carl, you are right that you will be deprived of an upper T-shirt. But I'm sure you get enough without you won't miss the upper one. But we are determined to make Zimbabweans engage with substance and also make Zimbabweans themselves realize that inadvertently they are contributing towards a corrupt culture where votes are traded as opposed to citizens vote on what they genuinely believe. So our contribution is going to be deprive or reduce the articles in your wardrobe on the one hand, and hopefully enrich your engagement with politics on the other. And that's what we're going to settle for.
Excellent. And also, coming back to the funny stuff, this is what I've enjoyed, the Dr. Nkosana Moyo jokes and the memes on the internet. Which one would you say has been your favorite that you've seen? Do you have any favorites? Do you have some? Does your team show you some of these pictures that people have superimposed and so on?
Well, they do show me some, but I suspect that they censor. I suspect, I've got no evidence. But I was amused. So I think it was Karoi, where I walked up to a couple that was sitting at lunchtime, and I asked them whether I could talk to them. In fact, it was a husband and wife. They were not even lovers. It was and they said, absolutely, would like to know, we've heard about you, we want to engage with you. And then that particular picture was then taken and used in all sorts of funny ways of me walking on people's privacy and what have you. I think, I mean, it's humor. So let's take it that way and move on.
Right.
Yeah.
We had an interesting opportunity to have dinner with you last night, and one of the things that maybe hasn't come across on the internet is your celebrity sort of cult following, because we had people within the restaurant actually wanting to have selfies with you. Now, does this happen to you, like on the street when people see you? Is it that you're approaching people, or that people actually are coming to you to get a picture of President Bey?
Carl, this is a fascinating question, because when you follow what is going on social media and the debates, a lot of people will argue that we don't know him. Where is he? Everywhere I've gone in this country, everywhere, people come up to me and say, oh, you know, they will use all sorts of expressions. Nkosana, anobva kumberengwa, ndiye huyu. You know, people of all stations in life, everywhere I go, they recognize me. And yet there is a debate which is going on social media, which seems to want to put across that actually I'm not known. And I think what you saw last night is what is more actually happening than what is being claimed on social media.
All right, interesting. I saw Baba Kelvin. Look, I'm thinking Baba Kelvin, but it's Baba Kelvin says, I admire this man. I wish he can join hands with Chamisa. He's full of ideas, but without a party of not, he is not going to make it. What's your take on the issue of joining the alliance and other collective forces? Why go it alone? Why not join the alliance, which seems to be attracting huge crowds in the
yes, and that question comes up all the time. And my answer to it is very simple. That alliances are formed normally after the election, not before the election.
Mm-hmm.
Before the election, I would like my ideas and Chamisa's ideas and President Mnangagwa's ideas
mm-hmm.
to come across to citizens undiluted.
Mm-hmm.
In the event that the vote does not present this nation with an outright winner, then clearly then you have to look for each other and see whether you can align your ideas and your policies to form a government, because then you have to.
Mm-hmm.
So I do not understand why people don't accept that before the election itself, you should not preempt the possibility of citizens actually presenting this nation with a majority party. In other words, a party that wins the majority of the vote. I think we have to keep that open. In the event that fails, only then should parties look for each other in terms of who can work with who.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we are approaching this.
All right, so we are focusing on messages coming through on our WhatsApp platform, our Facebook Live. We're live on Dr. Nkosana Moyo's page. We're live on Culture Show page. We are also live on Prince FM 91.2. So a message coming through on our WhatsApp platform. I'm actually pleased by Dr. Moyo's policies, and I honestly think his policies are sound. But I want to know, what is his take on Kukuraundi? Everyone seems to be dodging. And what is his purpose of the visit to Victoria Falls? Can we as youths meet him? We want a sound discussion with the man. Message coming through from Carlos. So the question that I will ask you to focus on is the issue of...
Yes. I believe actually that I've been very forthright on the Gukuraundi issue.
Mm-hmm.
Gukuraundi is an event that happened, which is acknowledged. Nobody hides that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we necessarily know the extent, because we've not given victims the opportunity to tell their story.
Mm-hmm.
So my view is that the victims and victims' families, they have to be given an opportunity to tell their story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? And I think in similar vein, they also ought to be given an opportunity to proffer how they think it ought to be dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that part.
Mm-hmm.
On my personal part, I also have put on the table that I want Zimbabweans, without diminishing the atrocity, I want Zimbabweans to challenge me as a leader on how to build a Zimbabwe where Gukuraundi cannot happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? So I think there ought to be an acknowledgement of Gukuraundi, space given, a platform given for victims, and in many ways we need to deal with the consequences of Gukuraundi. There are a lot of children from this part of the country and the Midlands who are going today without documentation, in terms of almost they are nationless because they've got no documentation. We need to work with our neighbors to deal with that reality. But I think what I want to stress is that I would like Zimbabweans to challenge me not to fixate on trying to remake, because you can't bring back the people who died. People died, but you can't bring them back. So the challenge for any leader, in my opinion, is to create a country in which Kukraundi cannot happen. But having given the opportunity for the victims to tell their story and propose what would satisfy them in how it's dealt with. So I think that's very straightforward. And I would also further add that for both us and South Africa, we've had these atrocities before. And we've chosen, and then look at a country like Rwanda.
Right.
Yeah. Another situation where, and I think the evidence that is available to us indicates that when a leadership comes which acknowledges what happened and gives space for the victims to be heard, tell their story, suggest a way forward, but that there is, what happened is then taken as a lesson to inform how to build a different future, you get better results than when you fixate on the past.
Powerful. Makes sense. All right. Thank you so much for your messages that are coming through on our WhatsApp platform and, of course, our Facebook platform. But it seems that people are still talking about the issue of you joining Chamisa. Ngonitsashe Choko says, this man is a coward. Join Chamisa, Musunungire Vanabe Zimbabwe. Alfara says, join Chamisa Mdara Zunuzwifambe. Unfortunately, Minston says, unfortunately, he is unpopular with the electorate. He sounds mature and up to the task. You have got practical ideas. He's the best candidate, but he has no popularity in this polarized country. Why do you think you don't have that popularity in this polarized country, Dr. Amon?
Well, I think those people who think, Carl just asked a question, am I recognize where I go? And these people are claiming I don't have popularity. Where does that come from? Put the two together for me.
Interesting. Carl, your last sentiments are to Dr. Moyo.
Okay, so where to next on the tour? Is there a way that people can follow what you are doing? Is there a tracker that's happening online? Is there a schedule of where you are going, where people can expect to find you?
Well, we don't deliberately, because of also dealing with security issues, we don't schedule and publicize, but yes, we've got a plan that we follow. But in terms of how to follow us, in terms of what's going on, we've got a website, we are on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and we always post.
All right, so in my final word will be the issue of structures, Dr. Moyo. Yeah. People are still asking about why are you going it alone? Yes, you have said that you do have, but the issue of structures, that's what people are asking. I was talking to Mazvisa Sindiso yesterday in Bulawayo, and he said, look, you're going to have that interview with Dr. Nkosana Moyo. Can you ask him if he cannot manage to have structures, how will he manage to run government?
Well, we have structures. So in fact, we're going to be having a live stream soon where we're going to publicize our structures. And they have people, those people, individuals, our NEC for instance, speak for themselves. In fact, now I'm minded to include on that live stream both the National Executive Council members as well as our provincial chairs, so that people understand we've got structures. We've got structures all over the country. So this issue of that I'm going, at the moment, for instance, I'm traveling with the chairperson for Mat North. I've just come back from Mat South, where I traveled with the chairperson of Mat South. We've got structures.
This one is a funny comment, of course. People may as well ask Chamisa Wacho to join Nkosana.
That's a very valid and
for some bullet train strategies, because you might to get you faster around the country. By now, your campaign would have gone 3 times around the country.
All right, and
that's a fair-minded comment.
All right, so that message is coming, that statement is coming through from Alphonse Chuma. Thank you so much for your message, Alphonse Chuma. All right, so we were with Dr. Nkosana Moyo right here in the studio, where we were talking about wide-ranging issues revolving around Kukraundi, revolving around his policies and his strategy, which he says is working for him. Carl?
Yes, I'm just interested in following this trail. I'm a little disappointed that we can't get some upper t-shirts and upper caps to add to our growing wardrobe. But I think what has been interesting for me is seeing a different or refreshing approach to politics. Yeah. My personal view has always been that it is bad for the electorate to sit in the sun all day. Maybe if we had bigger venues, it would have been better. What things would you recommend to other political parties, maybe to save the electorate from some of these issues?
So Maybe, Carl, I should answer you by saying what is coming up from the people and what am I observing? Maybe because your audience here is going to be local.
Yes.
The things that really worry me.
Mm-hmm.
As I go around, I think we've socialized our people into a space where actually we don't even know what the role of an MP is. We don't know what the role of a councillor is. Because we are self-serving as the elites. We have totally distanced ourselves from servant leadership, doing things for the people. People now don't realize that politicians are their employees. They think politicians are their bosses. And I hope that I can appeal to all political parties to take this to heart. If we want to create stability in our country, a country that will succeed and thrive, we need everybody to feel invested in what's going on, not on the basis of a transaction where the electorate thinks they're doing you a favor and you are their boss. Mm-hmm. Actually, you are not their boss, you are their employee. And I think the elites also, because the political people tend to be in the elites category, we need to really pay attention to the fact that we are leaving behind a lot of our population. People are suffering in this country. I've been shown roads which lead to hospitals, which are so potholed, it is not possible to carry somebody who is on their deathbed, so to speak, along that road and get them to survive.
All right.
And we're running around the country or doing politics in a manner, spending money on convoys and buying things for political process, which are not connecting with where the people really are.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Nkosana Moyo, for your time. But just some trivia questions. Which football team do you support in Zimbabwe?
I'm not a football fan. I'm sorry to say.
Your favorite meal?
My favorite meal? Maybe Ishwala Matimbi, possibly.
Ishwala Matimbi, my favorite also. Well, I think.
That's interesting.
Yeah, maybe I can vote for you because you like
I would have guessed it was Nzinde. I was very sure it was Nzinde.
All right, interesting. And you don't have a scarf.
A what?
It's scarf.
No.
There's no upper scarf.
No. Tina, we're really trying to focus our campaign on engaging with people on issues, not on these sort of showy things which mean nothing at the end of the day. Yeah.
All right, good
substance.
Substance. That is what Dr. Nkosana Moyo is talking about. Do check it out with mine a minute before the half 10. And of course, this was the coach where we get to interview prominent people. And today we were with Nkosana Moyo, who is running for the presidency of this country, Zimbabwe. And Dr. Nkosana Moyo, thank you so much. We can talk all day and.
We even forgot to ask about the beard tips.
Beard, yes, that's one. How do you do it?
Do you have a personal barber? Is there a team? Is there a beard team that wakes up in the morning and they rush into the room before anybody sees you?
No. I don't spend too much time on those sort of things.
All right. Last question. Oh, Brezhnev Nkanyiso Matonsi Utiena, who is that beautiful lady on your campaign team? Angwazi, you have a beautiful lady in your campaign team.
Well, maybe Unyarazo normally comes along with me. I suspect that's Nyarazo.
Oh, okay.
By the way, Unyarazo is actually our NEC member responsible for publicity and information.
NEC
Bay.
Oh, this has been fun. This has been exciting. Thank you so much, Dr. Nkosana Moyo, for joining us. And thank you, Carl. Thank you also to Tinashe. Thank you so much. May God bless you.
Who is responsible for social media?
Oh, great. All right.
Working with Nyarazo.
Oh, nice. Oh, Nyarazo.
Yes, he's responsible for retweeting the memes. They're very good at retweeting and sharing the memes.
That's what we do.
This is great.
Yeah, we are open. We are open-minded.
Shout out to Kudacha Bisa.
We will make Zimbabwe really open for business because we'll form a proper platform.
Thank you so much, Doc.
Thank you.
All right, cheers.
Thank you very much.
All right.